The TasCast Show Daily. It's easy, short, and fun. Enjoy the facts and the stories. Hello. Welcome to the 33rd TasCast Show Daily episode. I'm your host, Tassos Paradalis, and here I talk about data science, entrepreneurship, comedy, and veganism. And I hope you're enjoying the show, guys. This is the second daily in the row after a short break of not having daily shows. And let's move on with the story and a topic of the day. So I just arrived back to Scotland. I am a bit sleepless. I haven't really slept very well. I slept a few hours of the airplane last night, but then in Edinburgh the trains were cancelled, so I couldn't come to Stirling to go to bed. So I stayed at my brother's place for the night. I slept for 2 or 3 hours. I came straight to the university. Didn't manage to get I need to relax a bit and take a shower and stuff, but I have a lot of work to do, so this is gonna have to wait until tonight when I finish with everything. And the good news is that I managed to arrange all of my passports and military paperwork that I had to update for this year. And now I think I'm ready to face this semester. Although I try my best to keep up daily with the content online and everything, because the semester started very quickly, with this week being already fully packed with responsibilities and a deadline for tomorrow. It's a group project, so my lecturers don't seem to want to allow me to participate in the presentation tomorrow, so it seems like I'm gonna lose about 15% of my grade, but that's alright. I guess I did everything I could do to keep up. So for me, on my behalf, from my perspective, I'm up to date with whatever I need to know and the project's needs and the project's theories as well as practice. But since I haven't put down the hours on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday with my group to work on a solution for the presentation, because I wasn't physically here, I'm not allowed to argue about it, and I guess it's fair. Probably very likely I would probably have the same opinion if someone else was missing from the group, although in the past, to be fair, and in the future I will do the same. I'm always willing to take one for the team. I don't really care. It doesn't bother me if it's not something huge, but you never know, it could bother me, and it's not up to me, or it's not up to the group, it's up to the university, and I do understand their point of view as well. So yeah, that's kind of it's not the best start for this semester, but I will make up for it otherwise. So that's kind of a story, kind of short update. I'm back, and now about the topic of the day. I would like to expand a bit on. I would like to talk about advice, what's good about advice, because we had a conversation today morning about advice, so that was an interesting one to sit down and think about it, when you received a good advice or when you receive horrible advice, and what makes a good advice or a bad advice. Now, as an entrepreneur, and I find myself having mentors in many areas, and the last couple of years I also find myself giving advice to some other entrepreneurs, either face to face or via email or even via the podcast. Now I try my best to consider everything and understand and realize that I don't know everything about any subject, because this keeps me up to it keeps me in on my toes, to always try and update my knowledge and always try to understand the point of view of other people. So from my experience, good advice I receive always when people try to understand where I'm coming from, and so that happens through questions usually. So in a way, some people will give me good advice after they understand the whole situation. But of course, they have to know the facts, and they have to have some sorts of experience in an area. for the advice to be valid and good. But sometimes, though, I happen to receive good advice indirectly from people who don't necessarily have an experience in a particular area that I'm struggling with, or a particular subject, but they know how to ask the right questions to make me think, because usually a lot of the answers are in our heads. Or when you're indecisive, some people have the talent to ask you a few key questions or tell you a couple of key sentences which will push you forward in a way that you're going to do whatever you couldn't do before because of indecision. So on the other hand, bad advice, I think I have given bad advice in the past to people myself, as well as I received bad advice. Why do I say that? I did fall into the trap of giving advice to people, again, thinking of the giving advice to people before really considering all the variables in a conversation. Especially when I was younger, I thought I knew everything. But the older I get, the more I consider before I answer some questions or before I provide an advice to someone. Another example of bad advice is sometimes when you do say something or advise people to do something that you don't personally do. Now I realize that sometimes it's difficult for everybody to do everything that they know that should happen. So now knowledge and advice are much different from action points or action taking. So, but it is an example of a bad advice, let's say, on these regards that I have given to people is, in a way, it's bad. In a way, I didn't follow up my own words, but when I do the daily show, it helps me keep track. It helps me to be productive. It helps me keep track with everything and start my days properly or finish my days properly as well. Keep a routine, keep a structure. But when I don't do it, I did get sick and I couldn't speak for a few days, and then I stopped doing the podcast, and then I decided to continue with an experiment and see how many days I could do it without influencing my productivity and creativity on the top of everything. And I did find out that this didn't that not doing the podcast daily actually kind of ruined my creativity, productivity, and routine, and it was very difficult to get back at it. It took me one extra week after I got better to get back at everything. But in the end of the day, I gave a bad advice in a form of hypocrisy, because I said to a friend to write something every morning, and a few days later I disappeared because when I got sick and everything, and she was trying to reach to me and I couldn't reply for a few days, and I influenced her badly because she did what I asked her to do, what I told her, what I advised her to do, which helped her for a few days, but then she needed my support and I wasn't there because of personal reasons. And I think in the end of the day, when I analyze this, kind of going back to thinking and reflecting on that, my advice was bad in the way that I have probably given more. I have made my friend feel like she's gonna receive more of me than I was ready or willing to provide her with. And maybe that's kind of a bad advice kind of thing. I don't, you see what I mean? Like, bad advice and good advice comes in many shapes and forms. And when I started thinking about it this morning, I came up with all these interesting thoughts, and I wanted to share it with you guys as part of this podcast, where I share stories about personal development as well, which I see it as part of entrepreneurship. Being an entrepreneur, you always have to develop yourself. Anyway, again, before I close, a reminder that I'm going to have Petros Giaguris on the show in a few days. Hopefully, we are trying to get a date down, hopefully Sunday. We'll see if it happens. I will let you know, guys. But yeah, it's going to be an exciting segment with Petros when it happens. And until then, have an awesome day full of love, passion, and compassion. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow again. And bye-bye.